Hello there, English 2 students, and welcome to day one of us reading Act 4 of The Crucible by Arthur Miller. So, here's just some of the things that we focused on here on our first day of reading. Keep in mind, we're focusing in on character development throughout this particular act. Character development, once again, is whenever the character starts out one way, an event happens to them that changes them, and they're different by the end after the event. Since this is a very short play, there's only one really big character develop, or there's only a couple of big character development moments that happen. So there's not as frequent as a longer story might possess, but there are enough that you can do the prompt that is assigned along with it. So keep in mind what the characters are like at the beginning of the play and what they're like at now. And we do see a big change in this particular act. And so how the first couple acts went, you had act one, and then a week passed, and then act two, another week passed, and then act three. Now act four is taking place 3 months after the end of act four or end of act three. So a lot of time has passed in Salem since ever since the last time we've met these people, and a lot has changed in Salem as a result. So we start off, and we kind of have the mentioning that it's been a couple months since then, and we start off, and our physical setting is the jail. We're at the jail there at Salem, and we interact with three characters that we haven't really got to see much depth. We've interacted with Marshall Herrick a little bit, and we heard Sarah Good mentioned in passing, and Tituba showed up at the very beginning of the play. Now she is back here at the end. So there's the first thing to note is that they talk about Marshall Herrick, and they go out. Arthur Miller goes out of his way to point out that he is nearly drunk, and he constantly talks about him getting out a flask and drinking and whatnot. The first question I have for you to think about is, why is Marshall Herrick drunk now? They don't mention anything about that in Act Two, Act Three, nothing about that. But now months have passed, and now he is visibly uh, drunk, and they're deliberately making a point about that. Why? What would drive Marshall Herrick to do this? The second thing to consider here in this first little vignette between these three characters is that the way that Tituba and Sarah Good are acting. There's usually two interpretations that students take with this. Either both of these women are just joking with Marshall Herrick, or both of them have just lost their mind and actually believe what they're saying. I personally kind of always have thought that it's kind of down the middle. One of them might have lost their mind while the other one is just playing along. Uh, guess which one you think is which, because that's the kind of way I've always kind of swayed it back and forth. But it's just a nice little vignette to kind of help you understand kind of what's been going on, how Salem has changed over the last couple months. After Marshall Herrick escorts the two ladies out of the jail cell, we have Judge Danforth and Hawthorne return, and we get some surprising information. It talks about Reverend Hell arriving, and they're kind of curious why he's here. If you think back to the end of Act Three, Reverend Hell completely quit the court. He's like, "I'm done with y'all," and just pieces out. Now he's back, and that's kind of odd. And the person he's has an allegiance with is kind of Reverend Paris, and Reverend Paris and him weren't necessarily on the same page just 3 months ago in the previous act, but now it's Paris who's allowed Hell into the jail cells. Hmm. I wonder why. So if we continue on to page 321 or 1321, we find out that Paris has been acting strange. Specifically, you can see and hear specifically how he's been acting strange, and the town right here, Cheever gives us some information about what's going on with the town. It's the first prelude to telling us how like strange the town has become, and I like this description we have because it shows us because remember, one of the things we're focusing on is character development, how the characters change throughout the play. Here's the description of Reverend Paris when he first walks in here in Act 4. He is gaunt, frightened, and sweating in his great coat. So that is different than how he was described in Act 1. Now, it's not just the physical description, like what has made him a different person. And hint, he is one of the few that the reason why he's changed is not because of the climax. So we go down here and we find out that Reverend Hell has been talking to Rebecca Nurse, trying to bring her to God by bidding her to confessing to save her life. And that's a big difference. It's not confessing because you're a witch. He put an emphasis on confessing to save his life. On this page, we find out why Paris has been acting strange, and it is in these two phrases right here, or these two lines right here. And here's basically what happens. uh, Here. There is news, sir, that the court must reckon with. My niece, I believe she's vanished. This be the third night, you see, sir. She told me she would stay with a night with Mercy Lewis. The next day she does not return. I sent Mr. Lewis to inquire. Mercy told him that he was sleeping at my house that night. They pulled the old switcheroo like that. So it's not just that they vanished, because Paris has even more information right here. Excellency, I think they aborted a ship. My daughter tells me how he heard them speaking of ships last week, and tonight I discovered my strong box broken into. So Abigail robs Paris and just leaves the country. And she stole 31 pounds from him. So that's so 31 so pounds are like the British version of our dollar. And 31 of them equates to like $8,000 today. Uh so Abigail steals $8,000 from her uncle and just leaves the country. Why? We find out right down here. In fact, Paris even says that I cannot think that they would run except the fear to keep in Salem anymore. There's this news that's bringing up in Andover, and they keep on mentioning Andover. Andover's been mentioned over and over and over and over and over again. And here's where you really get to unpack what's going on in Andover. The best way I can kind of explain it is Salem is Portageville, Andover would be New Madrid. And basically, in Andover, the witch trials are not going that well. Like the people in the town are starting to get upset about what's going on. And so they're afraid that that's going to start bleeding over into Salem. And that's part of the reason why, Mercy and Abigail peace out. Uh, and here's the big reason why. And it kind of comes back to that sociological lens that we've been looking at this play occasionally through. And Paris notes it right here. Judge Hawthorne, it were another sort that hanged till now. Rebecca Nurse is no Bridget that lived with 3 year with Bishop before she married him. John Proctor is no Isaac Ward that drank his family to ruin. Keep in mind, the first couple people that were arrested and the first couple people that have been hanged for witchcraft were poor people or homeless people or people that did not necessarily have the means. But now they're starting to get to the point where, like Rebecca Nurse, she's a part of the family that's feuding with the Putmans. They're a rich family. John Proctor is a farmer. He has land. He is a kind of a respected man in the community. So we're now starting to hang rich people, and people are now concerned. I hate that's how the world turns, but no one really cares of us taking advantage of poor people. But all of a sudden, if you have money and we're taking advantage of you, we flip on to page 1323, which is where we're sitting at right now, and we come to the reason why Reverend Hell has come back. Reverend Hell he says it basically right here. And now that Reverend Hell has returned, this where Paris describes this. The reason why Reverend Hell has come back is he thinks that he can finally. He's trying to buy some people some time because he sees the end in sight. He sees that this whole witch craze is starting to die down. People are not taking it anymore. And so if he can just convince some people to say, hey, I'm a witch, and save their lives, because they've been hanging people on the reg. So they're trying to stop that from happening. So Reverend Hill's like, if you admit you're a witch, all of a sudden it will go away. Like, come in a couple days, but you just you gotta do it now and get rid of your stubborn pride. But we'll see how that goes. Uh, Another reason why we see a change in heart from Paris is this right here. Tonight, when I open my door, I leave my house. A dagger clattered to the door, to the ground. You cannot hang this sort. There's danger for me. I dare not step outside at night. We continue to go down here, and Danforth informs us kind of like why he really can't change his point of view because 12 have already hanged for the same crime. It's not just. He's already killed 12 people. He can't he can't turn back now because he's already killed 12 people. He has to continue down this just quote unquote just path. He's not willing to say no, except that he's wrong. We also find out that there are 7 people scheduled to hang today, and Danforth drops this epic line of just how stubborn and how stuck in his ways he is. I shall hang 10,000 that dare to rise against the law, and an ocean of salt tears could not melt the resolution of my statutes. So yeah, he is not changing his mind. They finally come down to like, hey, let's see if we can flip Proctor. Let's see if we can get Proctor onto our side. And they're trying to figure out how to get through to Proctor, and so they decide to try to get uh, Elizabeth Proctor, his wife, get him to admit that he's a witch. And so they invite Elizabeth Proctor in, and there's kind of a little bit of a back and forth. Before we get to Elizabeth Proctor coming in, we get Reverend Hell explaining like this strange post-apocalyptic pre-colonial landscape that we're experiencing. Hell says, Excellency, there are orphans wandering from house to house looking for food. Abandoned cattle bellow in the high roads. So cows are just wandering around, just like going moo because they're in so much pain because they need milk. Uh, and the stink of rotting crops hangs everywhere because no one can pull. There's too much crop and not enough manpower because everybody's in jail. And no man knows when the harlot's cry will end his life. And you wonder yet if rebellion spoke. You better marvel how they have not burned your province yet. Yeah, so things are bad in Salem. And we have another good line from Hell. Hell's one of the ones that I would recommend kind of focusing on for that change. You have this. He's asked why he has returned. He says, "Why it is simple to come to do the devil's work. I come to counsel Christians that they should belie themselves." His sarcasm then collapses. He says, "There's blood on my head, man. You cannot see the blood on my head." Like, keep in mind, he signed all these death warrants just like Danforth. He's trying to like clear his conscience. He's already has 9 deaths on his like soul that he's like is bringing him down. He doesn't want any more blood on his hands, and so he's trying to save people's lives. And that's where we get the Elizabeth Proctor entrance right here, and we find out that John Proctor, in fact, is one of the people that is scheduled to hang. I like this little exchange that Hell gives right here. Uh, I'll read it for you real fast, but to kind of paraphrase it before I read it, he's basically kind of saying along the lines of like, I'm a witch hunter and I was excited to hunt witches, and so I was eager to kind of like see witches where I could find them, but now I've seen like the destruction I've caused, and I need you to help me, Elizabeth. And you also have to keep in mind that Reverend Hell was kind of arrogant coming into this because of his education. He thought he was better than people. And the way Elizabeth responds here is excellent. Let you not mistake your duty as I mistook my own. I came into this village like a bridegroom to his beloved, bearing gifts of high religion. The very crowns of holy law I brought, and when I touched with my bright confidence, it died. And where I turned the eye of my great faith, blood flowed up. Beware, goody Proctor, cleave to no faith when faith brings blood. It is mistaken law that leads you to sacrifice. Life, woman, life is God's most precious gift. No principle, however glorious, may justify the taking of it. I beg you, woman, prevail upon your husband to confess. Let him give his lie. Quail not before God's judgment in this, for it may well be God damns the liar less than he throws his life away for pride. Will you plead with him? I cannot think he listens to another. And then Elizabeth replies, I think that be the devil's argument. Hell, with with a climactic desperation. Woman, before the laws of God, we are all swine. We cannot read his will. And Elizabeth, this is a good zinger, which refers back to like how he came in arrogant, thinking he was better than everybody because he's educated at Harvard. I cannot dispute with you, sir. I lack the learning of it for it. Ooh, that's a good line. We left off here, and Elizabeth has finally agreed. All right, fine. I will talk to my husband, and that's where we stopped for today. All right, so keep in mind we're looking for 20 annotations over the act. Focus in on how the characters change. This is the post change for most of them. So how are they now different than they were at the beginning of the play? If you have any questions, please email me at pdavidson@portugal.k12.mo.us. And until next time, I will see you later. Bye-bye.